Namaskar. Namaskar to all of you. Today we have a very beautiful topic. Esteemed participants of this session, please mute all. Otherwise, unnecessary sounds will come. Prakash ji, please mute your system. Okay, now it is. Today's topic is Transcendental Aesthetic. This is a technical concept of Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant is a critical philosopher. He has criticized both empiricist and rationalist philosophers, and at the same time, Immanuel Kant has reconciled both the schools. So the real critique does not aim at criticizing for the sake of a criticism. A real critic is he who has an intention to reach at a conclusion. So that is the suppose we criticize for the sake of criticism. That is not criticism, rational criticism. We can't say that this is rational criticism. No, it is just like a argument, baseless argument. But when Immanuel Kant is called a critical philosopher, he is speaking about the limit of human knowledge and the possibility of human knowledge, both. As a critical philosopher, Immanuel Kant is speaking about the limitation of human knowledge and the possibility of human knowledge. So what is the limit? The limit is that if we really try to know something, if we really wish to have a perfect knowledge, healthy epistemology, then we have to reconcile between both empiricism and rationalism, because without experience, no rationalism is possible. Therefore, Immanuel Kant has reconciled both experience and understanding. That means the material world is necessary for our knowledge, and our mind is necessary for our knowledge. Before Immanuel Kant, there was contest between different schools that there is no role of mind in knowledge situation. Mind has a passive role in knowledge situation. And other philosophers claim that the external world has no role in a knowledge situation. The external world is ignored by some philosophers, and the mind is ignored by some other philosophers. Immanuel Kant says both the empirical world and human mind are responsible for having knowledge, for any knowledge situation. Because without experience, we have no data to conceptualize. So for any conceptualization, we have to depend upon the first door, the first step of knowledge, that is experience. And for experience, we need the outside world, the empirical world, the object of our knowledge. If there is no object of knowledge, there is no knowledge of object. So for the knowledge of object, we need the object of knowledge. What to know? I have to know something that is the object of knowledge. Then we can have the knowledge of that object. If the object is not there, then the knowledge is a misnomer. The knowledge has no meaning. We cannot we cannot say that I have knowledge of this object if this object does not exist. So Immanuel Kant says experience is the first step of epistemology, then understanding. But the point is, in Transcendental Aesthetic, Immanuel Kant made a revolution in philosophy by claiming that human mind is not passive, human mind is active. Mind has an active role in knowledge situation. By saying that, Immanuel Kant has given much importance to human mind. So this is the possibility of a human mind, that mind can be active. But the limitation of a human mind is that mind has a scope for knowledge. Beyond that scope, mind can't reach. So Immanuel Kant is speaking about both limitation and possibility of a human knowledge. So critical philosopher is he. We can call somebody as a critical philosopher who impartially gives focus on importance on both the limitation and possibility. Suppose we are going to examine the talent of a student, we have to see what is the weakness of that student and what is the hidden quality of that student. So if we do that impartially, then we can claim ourselves rational. Otherwise, we are biased. Otherwise, we are dogmatic. So critical thinking is free from dogmatic approach. So knowledge proper is really free from dogmatic approach. So according to Kant, both empiricist philosophers and rationalist philosophers were dogmatic in their approach. Why they were called dogmatic by Kant? Because empiricist philosophers were claiming that sense experience is the only source of knowledge. That only is to be underlined. Sense experience is the only source of knowledge. That means there is no role of mind. Rationalist philosophers claim that reason is the only source of knowledge. Immanuel Kant is claiming remove that only. You are claiming that sense experience is the source of knowledge. It is accepted. Yes, sense experience is necessary for knowledge. You rationalist philosophers, you are claiming that reason is the source of knowledge. That is also accepted. But don't say that it is the only source of knowledge. That is the problem. When you are saying only, that excludes the other possibility, that excludes the contribution of the other. If sense experience is the only source, then reason is neglected, mind is neglected. If reason is the only source of knowledge, then sense experience is rejected. Therefore, both sense experience and understanding are responsible for knowledge. Otherwise, we can't have knowledge. This is the fundamental claim of Immanuel Kant. Second, Immanuel Kant is giving importance to human mind. As in the Upanishads, in our Indian culture, human mind has been given much importance. Control of mind, chitta vrittis. We have long debate, long discussion about the contribution of human mind. It is mind that binds, it is mind that liberates. So human thought is everything. As you think, so you become. As you think, so becomes your philosophy. So mind is the root of everything. Mind is the root of all crises. And mind is the root of spiritual sadhana. Mind is the root of all types of attachments. It was Arjuna in the battlefield who was confused, who felt reluctant to fight only because Arjuna had a confused mind. It was Lord Krishna who was not confused because he had a Sthitapragya mana. He had a mind of equanimity, sthira mana, Sthitapragya mana. So it is mind that is disturbed, it is mind that is sthira, that is disciplined. So through mind, we do all types of spiritual sadhana. We entertain all types of thoughts. We criticize, we discuss, we debate. Everything we do through human mind. So human mind is very much active. Those who claim that mind is passive, they give importance to sensation. They give importance to sensuous feeling, sensuality. So that is the problem. So man is not sensuous by nature. Man is rational by nature. Man is an animal. Man has animal propensities. But man is not only an animal, man is a rational animal. In spite of the animal propensities, in spite of the animal qualities, man has an added quality. The other benefit is with man, that man can rationalize, man can think, man can have discriminative knowledge, that is intellect, that is buddhi. So rationality means buddhi. That is not mere knowledge. Mind is responsible. In Indian culture, mind has different stages. But in Western culture, mind means brain. This is the difference between the Western view and Indian view. They think mind means the physical brain. We don't take mind as simply physical brain. We think mind has different stages. Sri Aurobindo is speaking about different stages of mind. Over mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, super mind, then Satchidananda. That means the so-called mind is nothing but a level of consciousness. So mind is feeling. So we feel through my mind is a stage where feelings are entertained. But beyond mind, there is intellect. That is, the intellect is responsible for discrimination between good and bad, right and wrong. So Arjuna had both mind and intellect, as every person has both mind and intellect. But the question is, who guides you? Whether you are guided by your mind or you are guided by your intellect. If you are guided by your mind, then you are more emotional. So you will be driven by emotional emotions, different types of emotions. But if you are guided by your intellect, then you will have discriminative knowledge. That means what to do, what not to do, what is my duty, what is not my duty, what is the place of action, station of action, what is the time of action, what is the person for whom I am doing this action, stana, kala, patra, space, time and person. About all these things, a person can be conscious if he has a sound intellect. Arjuna was confused in the battlefield because Arjuna was guided by his mind, not by intellect. Therefore, the entire Bhagavad Gita, the 18 chapters, in every chapter, there is a message for grooming, culturing, nurturing our intellect. How can we culture our intellect? Culture of intellect is education. Education does not mean having certificates. If you claim yourself as educated, then you examine yourself how far you have cultured your intellect, how far you have controlled your mind, how far you have controlled your sense organs. This is education in spiritual sadhana. This is education in Indian culture. Education does not mean having degrees and certificates and qualifications, having recognition, having service, being a professor in a university. That is education. Education means your transformation. Have you transformed yourself from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness? In a particular level of consciousness, you are conscious of the fact that you are nothing but this body. So you are running after the material prosperity. You have envy, you have jealous, you have all types of all types of mental agony. Why? Because you identify yourself as this body. When you identify yourself with mind, that is another level of consciousness, then you are better than the first one, those who are conscious of the body. But this is also another type of bondage. When you think that you are nothing but your mind, then you run after recognition, you run after praise, you run after appreciation. You need friends. That is also rajasic in nature. That is not sattvic, because you are running after intellectual satisfaction. That is not the real satisfaction. That is not the spiritual satisfaction. That is not ananda. So as the intellect is satisfied, so the intellect is dissatisfied. So that is also a state of bondage. For Arjuna, the conflict was an intellectual conflict. Arjuna was not a fool. Arjuna was not. Arjuna was wise. Arjuna was very much efficient. He was a great warrior. He was with Lord Krishna. In spite of all these things, he became confused because he was misguided by his mind and intellect. So intellect is also, the culture of intellect is also not the highest perfection. We have to go beyond mind and intellect. Mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, all these chitta, antakarana, the internal organs should be purified. This is our culture. When we speak of mind, we take mind in a very wider sense. But when we discuss Western philosophy, they have only one concept, that is mind, that mind who can understand, who can think, and that is a biological part which is called brain. So, when we are discussing about Immanuel Kant being a Western philosopher is giving importance to the activity of human mind, and he is claiming that human mind is not passive, human mind has an active role in the knowledge situation. So, in every knowledge, that means generally we think that for experience, mind has no role. For experience, our sense organs have active role. Suppose I see a table, so there is a relation between table and my eye sense organ, and my mind has no role at all. This is generally supposed. Suppose I eat something, then my eating and the object that I eat, the food that I eat, there is a relation between the object, the food that I eat, and the act of eating. So here there is no role of mind. But Immanuel Kant says, without mind, even you can't have experience. This is the revolution that he made in philosophy. Generally, it is thought that in empirical experience, there is no role of mind. Sense organs experience. We perceive through sense organs. We hear, we see, we smell, we touch. All these perceptions are possible through sense organs. So perception is possible through the contact between sense organ and object. Even in Indian philosophy, in Nyaya system, it is said that mere contact between sense organ and object is not perception. Perception is possible when there are three types of contact. The first contact is the object must be in contact with our sense organs. The table is there, my eye sense organ is there, and there is a contact between my eye sense organ and object. But that is not perception. Even if there is a physical contact between my sense organ and a table, I may not have that perception of the table because my mind is absent. So my mind should come in contact with the sense organs. Otherwise, we can't have knowledge. So mind can't remain absent. If mind remains absent, if mind remains inactive, then we can't have any type of a perception. This is also said in Indian philosophy, what Immanuel Kant as a Western philosopher is claiming. Western philosopher Immanuel Kant is claiming that in every case of a perception, in every case of a experience, mind has an active role. Without the interference of mind, sense organs cannot perceive. We cannot have experience without the interference of a mind. Immanuel Kant, being a Western philosopher, claimed this. But long ago, it has been said in our Indian philosophy, in the Nyaya system, that mere contact between sense organ and object is not knowledge. I am giving an example. Suppose I am driving my car, but I am upset. I am mentally disturbed. Even if I see the outside, the roads and everything that I am perceiving through my sense organs, otherwise I can't drive. If at any moment my mind remains absent, I became absent-minded, then there will be accident. And all accidents, maximum accidents, they take place for this absence of mind. So mind should remain alert in every course of perception. That is called yoga. Yoga means mind. We should not allow mind to remain absent. Mind should remain alert. Yoga. That means it should be with us. The crisis is that mind is foreign to us. Mind is absent from us. So that is yoga. Yoga means we should unite our mind with our physical activities, with our mental activities, and with our spiritual activities. If mind is not united with any type of activity, then there can be no knowledge, there can't be any knowledge, can't be any spiritual sadhana. So in Indian philosophy also, mind is given much importance. Again, another contact is that mind can't function if it does not come in contact with the soul. This is said in Indian philosophy, which Immanuel Kant does not accept because he does not believe in the existence of a Atman, soul. He does not believe in that. So he reached only the climax of the relation between mind and sense organ. But in Indian philosophy, even your mind will not work. Even your mind cannot be active without pure consciousness, without chetana. There is chetana in yourself, in our being. Therefore, mind is becoming active. Though there is a mind, though there are eyes of a dead body, eyes are open, but eyes fail to see because there is no chetana, there is no consciousness. So mind is functioning because of the presence of chetana, presence of consciousness. This is the Indian view. But being a Western philosopher, Immanuel Kant is also giving importance to the fact that mind is not passive, mind is active. In which way mind is active? He is giving three fundamental activities of mind. Number one is transcendental aesthetic. Number two is transcendental logic. Transcendental logic is again divided into two types. Number one, transcendental analytic. Number two, transcendental dialectic. That means there are three types of activities. One is transcendental aesthetic, the other is transcendental analytic, and the third one is transcendental dialectic. Entire human knowledge, the scope of human knowledge can be scrutinized, can be discussed under these three mental activities: transcendental aesthetic, transcendental analytic, and transcendental dialectic. Regarding these three activities, we shall have three different talks. So today's topic is transcendental aesthetic, which is the activity of a human mind in a knowledge situation. So what is that transcendental aesthetic? Immanuel Kant says, if mind has an active role in experience. When we perceive something, we generally think that it is a posteriori, it is dependent upon experience, it has nothing to do with any universal form. It is only objective. There are three things. Implicit philosophers claim that knowledge is objective, but it is not universal and necessary because it can't be universal and necessary. The process of induction, when we believe in induction, when we do induction, there we take some instances, then we maintain an inductive leap, and we give a general conclusion. This crow is black, that crow is black, that crow is black, that crow is black. So we perceived 100 crows to be black. Then we say that all crows are black. This generalization is probable by nature because even if we have observed thousands of crows to be black, a single negative instance is sufficient to cancel the general conclusion that all crows are black. Suppose in a fine morning I shall see a white crow, then the declaration that all crows are black, that will be cancelled. Therefore, science claims, even if I rely on scientific procedure relies on experiments, verification, evidence, but that ends with probability. So that means scientific knowledge is objective. Scientific knowledge cannot be universal and necessary. This is the limitation of science. Science can't speak of universality and necessity because scientific knowledge, scientific conclusion is hypothetical by nature because it is subject to revision. Tomorrow we can revise it. There is no guarantee that sun will rise tomorrow because it is always probable. It is always conditional. It is always hypothetical. If such and such things will take place, then such consequences will follow. That means it is conditional. It is hypothetical. So knowledge is objective. Knowledge can't be universal and necessary. This is the claim of empiricist philosophers. Rationalist philosophers claim knowledge is universal and necessary, but knowledge is not objective and knowledge can't be objective. For example, mathematics. For example, deduction. In mathematics, what we do, we make mathematical equations where there is a necessary relation between the ideas. In deduction also, there is a necessary relation between premise and conclusion. Whatever is said in the premise, that is repeated in the conclusion. In an analytic proposition is also the predicate repeats the subject. So in such case, no new knowledge is given. For example, all men are mortal. Ram is a man. Conclusion is Ram is mortal. Now the conclusion Ram is mortal is already there in all men are mortal. If all men are mortal, then Ram is mortal, Hari is mortal, Gopal is mortal. So what new knowledge deduction gives? No. So in deduction, in mathematics, there is no objectivity. The knowledge is not objective in mathematics or in deductive logic. But that is universal and necessary. 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. 7 plus 5 is 12. It is universal and necessary because irrespective of space and time, 7 plus 5 is always 12. Similarly, all men are mortal and Ram is a man. If this is the premise, then there must be a conclusion. Ram is mortal. But when we speak of all men are mortal and Ram is a man, this is understood. Having the same form, we can change the language. How all men are dogs. This sounds odd, but it is logically valid. All men are monkeys, or all men are idiots. Ram is a man, so Ram is an idiot. Whether Ram is an idiot or not, in fact, that does not matter in deduction. In deduction, we focus on whether the conclusion logically follows from the premise or not. Similarly, in mathematics, we take the help of variables. That means we take different types of variables in different situations. That does not matter. The matter is whether there is validity or not. There is a valid deduction or not. If there is a valid deduction, then this is good mathematics or correct mathematics. If there is any mistake in deduction, then that is the procedure is wrong. We have a wrong mathematics. So from this it is proved that knowledge from experience is objective but not universal and necessary. Similarly, according to rationalist philosophers, knowledge is universal and necessary, but not objective. Immanuel Kant says that knowledge is universal, necessary, and also objective. This is how he made a revolution in philosophy. That knowledge should be universal, necessary, and objective. This is the possibility of human knowledge. Otherwise that knowledge is useless. So rationalism is useless if it is not objective. Empiricism is useless if it is not universal and necessary. Knowledge is useful and meaningful and significant only when it has both the characteristics, that is universal and necessary, and at the same time it is objective. So when we have experience which is objective, now the question comes, how can it be universal and necessary? For example, now I am perceiving the table. So the table is there, myself is here, my eye sense organ is active. Now I am perceiving the table. That's okay. Then it is objective. How can we say that there is universality and necessity in this perception? Immanuel Kant says, yes, in every perception there is universal and necessary elements. How? He is claiming no perception is possible without the a priori condition of space and time. So space and time are the conditions, a priori conditions. A priori means which is independent of experience. A priori means which is not dependent upon experience. That is a priori. So when we are having experience, we are bound to follow some a priori conditions which are free from experience. That is how experience is also universal and necessary. That means if my perception is conditioned by space and time, then my perception of a table, the procedure is same with every perceiver. As I perceive the table, Rama perceives the table in the same way, and every person perceives the table in the same way, because everybody has to follow these two a priori conditions of space and time. That means our perception is spaced and timed. That means space category and time category are to be there, are to be involved in any case of perception. No perception is possible without space and time. Regarding space and time, there are three views. Newton says space and time are objective. Space and time are objective means they are empirically real. Empirically real. That means there is a real space outside our mind. There is a real time outside our mind. Leibniz claims space and time are relative by nature, they are illusory by nature, they are not real. Immanuel Kant is claiming that space and time are neither objective nor relative. Space and time are subjective. Space and time are a priori. Space and time are a priori conditions of mind which regulates our perception. That means without the interference of mind, through the a priori conditions of space and time, we can't have any type of a perception. So perception means perception through space and time. This is transcendental aesthetic. This is the first step of human knowledge. Generally, we don't notice that. I saw a table and I claim that this is a table. But in the fraction of a moment, there are many psychological steps. How can I saw the table? I can't see the table without space and time. So in that fraction of a moment, there is a great philosophy that is called Transcendental Aesthetic. But when I am saying that this is a table, this is another great step that is called Transcendental Analytic. So there are a series of psychological process when we simply perceiving something and we are judging something. Suppose I saw a snake, but I am judging, I am giving the conclusion that it is not a snake, it is a rope. Why there is such mistake? Why there is such error? Because there are many psychological process when we are perceiving something and we are judging something. Therefore, there is possibility of error. It is not spontaneous. It appears to be spontaneous, but there is a long series of psychological activities. So no perception is possible without space and time. It is very simple. It is not so critical to understand. Now we are discussing. Now we are asking the question. We should ask ourselves: can I perceive anything without space and time? It is not possible at all. Take any example. Any example. Suppose this is a book. This is a book. Can I perceive this book without a particular space? So this book has an extension. This book has occupied a particular area, that is space, in the infinite space. The space which is occupied by this book is not the total space. This is the part space. This is the part of the space of the infinite space. Similarly, when I perceive this book and I am claiming that this is a book, is it possible without a time? Suppose there is time 1, time 2, time 3, time 4, time 5. There is a series of time. Now we are having this discussion, so we are passing our time. So when I am uttering some words, when I am speaking some words, every word is uttered in a time. Time 1, time 2, time 3. That means similarly we claim, we say that one man cannot remain present at two places at the same time. One person can't remain present at two places at the same time. That means we can remain present at one place at one time. So space and time are very much necessary and significant for our existence, for our knowledge, for our feelings too. Suppose I am feeling happy, that occurs in a time. Suppose I am feeling sorry, that occurs in another time. In one particular time, in a fraction of a moment, I can't be both happy and unhappy. If I am happy, that occurs in a time. If I am not happy, that also occurs in a time. So every time has its significance. Every time is the witness of our activities. So without space and time, no experience is possible. This is the a priori condition. A priori means it is independent of experience, but that means space and time cannot be perceived. But without space and time, we cannot perceive anything. So for any perception, space and time are a priori forms. Otherwise, mathematics will not be possible. Suppose we say 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Suppose I shall write 1. I shall write 1. So when I write 1, it has meaning because that 1, the line, the symbol, that occupies a space in the white paper. Suppose I shall write here 1. That means, suppose I shall have a dot. That dot is not 1. Even if it is a dot, very small dot, it has its space. Without that space, I can't say, suppose we are writing a sentence, there is a full stop. So that full stop is very small, but that occupies space. Without space, the full stop will not be visible. So extension and color go hand in hand. We can't perceive extension without color. Similarly, suppose there is a full stop, that simple dot has occupied a space. In mathematics, what happens? Suppose I write 1, that has a space. Suppose I shall write another 1 over it. 1, then over it, I shall write again 1, then it is not 2. It is the same 1. Mathematics will be possible when I shall use space and time. How? 1 that occupies one space plus another 1, then is equal to 2. 1 over that another 1, that is 1. That is not 2. Similarly, when we are counting, we are speaking 1 at a time 1. We are speaking another 1 in time 2. Therefore, we understand it is 2. So we utter the word 1 in 2 times. For example, 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. 7 is uttered in one time. 5 is uttered in another time. Therefore we sum. Therefore we calculate. Otherwise we fail to calculate. So in mathematics also, without space and time, we can't have mathematical knowledge. And geometry, it is the science of space. Geometry is the natural science. Suppose there is a triangle. The triangle occupies space. Therefore, we have geometrical principles. That triangle has 3 angles. All geometrical principles are based upon the fact of space. Without space, we can't understand geometry. Without space and time, we can't have mathematical knowledge. So, even mathematics is not possible without space and time. This is the claim of Immanuel Kant. So, for any experience, space and time are very much necessary. They are precondition. They are a priori forms, a priori percepts of our perception. By saying this, Immanuel Kant made a synthesis between empiricism and rationalism and claims that knowledge is not only universal and necessary but also objective. Similarly, knowledge is not only objective but also universal and necessary. Mathematics is not only universal and necessary but also it has objectivity. It has objective value. Because it is not possible without space and time. So inductive knowledge, increase knowledge, inductive procedure, increase knowledge. Similarly, Immanuel Kant says that deduction also increases knowledge because there is a priori conditions to have experience. It has universality and no experience is possible without universal a priori conditions which are in mind. which are not in the empirical world. So what happens? Very systematically, Immanuel Kant explains how mind is active even in experience, even in perception. If mind is not exercising its a priori forms, so no sense organ can perceive anything else. So we perceive through our sense organs, but there is a mind which has an active role because space and time as a priori forms are required. Newton says space and time are objective. They are not in human mind. They are objective. This is the claim of science. Leibniz, as a rationalistic philosopher, claims space and time are relative because space, real, whatever is called real, that is beyond space and time. This is called metaphysics. In metaphysics, the meaning of space and time is different. How? Just I am telling you how in metaphysics space and time is different. One person cannot remain present at two places at one time. This is an empirical impossibility. That means in this empirical world, we can't remain present at two places at the same time. But when we think of God, we think of Ishvara, we think of Brahman, what we say? God is Isavasyam idam sarvam. That means God is all pervaded. God is the all present, sarva vidyaman. God is all present. Isavasyam idam. That means God is all pervaded. That means God can remain present not only at two places at one time, but also in all places at one time, without committing any contradiction, because God is beyond space and time. Immanuel Kant also claims that any discussion about God, about soul, and about world is not possible through pure reason. Through pure reason means through the activity of mind by transcendental aesthetic and transcendental analytic. That means through space and time and 12 categories of understanding. But the discussion of God, soul, and the world is not meaningless. We can discuss that through practical reason. Similarly, in the Upanishad, it is said, from the Vyavaharika Satta, we can't remain present at two places at the same time, because it is empirically impossible. It is empirical in the empirical world, it is a contradiction. But in the Paramarthika Satta, we are not in space and time. We are infinite. We are that Brahman. We are pure consciousness. So there, we are not limited by space and time. All pervasiveness. So the same thought is developed in both East and West, but Immanuel Kant is giving importance on epistemology, whereas in the Upanishad, we give importance upon metaphysics. This is the difference. Anyway, the fundamental claim of Immanuel Kant is mind has an active role. Even mind has active role in experience. It is generally believed that in experience there is no role of mind. Our sense organs are responsible for any type of experience. But Immanuel Kant is claiming without the interference of mind, without the application of space and time, without the application of a priori forms, no perception is possible. Therefore, we can't know the reality beyond space and time. So then what is the status of our world? Perceivable world. World is of two types. World is that we perceive and the real world. That means thing in itself and thing that we perceive. There are two types of world. Immanuel Kant is claiming the object of our knowledge or the world that we perceive is the world of our perception. That means we are perceiving the perceivable world. That means the world that we perceive is nothing but the world of our perception. But beyond that, that is the real world. Why he said so? Because the world that we perceive, that is the world of space and time. That world is projected through the a priori categories of space and time. Because we can't have any experience without space and time. So the world that we see, that is nothing but the projection of these two a priori conditions, they are space and time. So in brief, in very short, that is called phenomenal world. That is called appearance. That means the world we see, that is not the reality, that is the appearance. That means something appears like something. This is appearance. This is not reality. Why it is appearance? Because it is projected through the a priori conditions of space and time. So this is the limitation of human knowledge, that with the best application of sensibility through space and time, human knowledge is limited to only the phenomenal world. That means the world that is beyond space and time is unknown and unknowable. Suppose we are going to fish in the ocean, we use a net, and the net has many holes. Each hole has a particular size. That size of the hole is the precondition by which we can determine which type of a fish we can fish. Otherwise, the small fish will be left out because the size of the hole is bigger than the size of the fish. Similarly, suppose we are having a yellow spectacle, then the world is yellow for us. In the Upanishad it is said, as your mind, so is your world. As you think, so you become. As your perception, so is your personality. So, what we perceive, that is not real, that is our subjective projection. That is the perceivable world is nothing but a projected world. And that projection is due to the a priori conditions of space and time. So here we made a scrutiny. That means we made a division. That we selected. That means the world is our selection. We are perceiving a selective world, and that is selected. Suppose the world is infinite, the reality is infinite, then we are perceiving a selective world, and that is selected by our a priori conditions of space and time. So in the first door, suppose in the written test, many candidates are left out. I am not free to perceive everything. Perception is not a free perception. Perception is possible only through the qualification. What is the qualification? Now that must conform to space and time. Whatever does not come in the purview of space and time, they are not experienced. They are not known. That is the reality. So the real world is unknown and unknowable. The world that we claim to know we claim that I know the world. That is the world of our projection, our understanding. So we claim the reality wrongly as real according to our understanding. That means we take our understanding granted. I understood this way, therefore this is the real world. No, this is your understanding of the world. This is the world view. World view is not world. Therefore, very beautifully, it is said in the Jaina system that knowledge is always relative. As 5 blind men, they tried to know the entire elephant. Because they are blind, their judgment cannot be pure. Because a blind person can't perceive the whole elephant. But ignorantly, every blind person is claiming that the leg is elephant, the belly is elephant, the ears are elephant. They are describing the totality from the perspective of a part. So we are perceiving the part, but we are speaking about the totality. This is the mistake. So human knowledge is limited. It is limited by space and time. So whatever does not come in the purview of space and time, they are not perceived. This is the fundamental principle of epistemology. Immanuel Kant is very much serious about this condition. Don't start your process in a wrong way. Be very much honest in your perception. Recognize the truth. Acknowledge the truth. Respect the truth. Accept the truth. Accept your limitation that you are a human being, you are not Ishvara. Because you are a human being, you have certain limitations. You are not free from space and time. So whatever you perceive, your perception is subject to the spatio-temporal conditions. You can't overtake it. So you know this limitation. If you know this limitation, then you are really a philosopher. Then you are really a critical thinker. Otherwise, your attempt is dogmatic. Your approach is dogmatic, like a layman. So this is the contribution of Immanuel Kant. Don't start your process in a wrong way. Because knowledge begins with experience. Knowledge begins with experience. So start a very sound beginning, very perfect beginning. Don't start your process in a wrong direction, in a wrong way. If your starting will be wrong, then your end will be wrong. If your basic assumption will be wrong, then your conclusion will be wrong. If the premise will be wrong, then the conclusion will be wrong. So don't start in the wrong way. If knowledge begins with experience, have your experience in the proper way. Don't speculate what can't be experienced. So it is very scientific. The approach of Immanuel Kant regarding the starting point of knowledge is very scientific. That knowledge begins with experience, number one. Experience is not possible without space and time. Number three, beyond space and time, there is another realm, there is something which can't be perceived by human being. So human perception is limited to phenomenal world. Human mind can't, very simple, in one sentence we can say, human mind cannot know something beyond the capacity of a human mind. As we have a lunar vehicle, we have a bike, we have a car, all these vehicles have their own capacity. We have to know that what is the capacity of a Luna, what is the capacity of a motorcycle, and what is the capacity of a car, and what is the capacity of a truck. and what is the capacity of a plane. We have to know that. Similarly, in Indian philosophy, human mind has a different capacity. The capacity of the mind of Vivekananda, the mind of Sri Aurobindo is not equal to the capacity of a layman. So minds are different, therefore thoughts are different. So we have to know the limitation of mind. So epistemology without knowing the limit of knowledge is dogmatic by nature. So if we claim that we know something, then our claim should be very scientific, our claim should be very authentic, our claim should be very rational. Okay? When I claim that I know something, I should know my limitation. Therefore, I should be submissive. I should say, no, this is my view. This is my perspective. From this perspective, I am saying this. This is not the total conclusion. This is not the whole reality. If I say so, then really I am rational. If I don't say that, then I am dogmatic. I am like that blind man who is perceiving the elephant. So this is the starting point of our epistemology. In the next session, we shall discuss the next step of epistemology, that is transcendental analytic. That is transcendental analytic. There we shall discuss, even if we perceive the empirical world through space and time, we can't have judgments. We can't have knowledge. Because for knowledge, we have to understand it. And for understanding, again, we have some a priori conditions. Immanuel Kant says there are 12 categories of understanding, because human understanding is also not free. As human perception is not free, so human understanding is also not free. So always we are conditioned, we are limited in our knowledge. But ignorantly we all claim that we are the men of wisdom, we are great professors, we know everything. These are the false agony. So we all respect Socrates, who is considered as the wisest person, but he himself claims that I know nothing. I know nothing. And I know that I know nothing. This is the humility. This is the real character of human being, who is the real seeker of wisdom. Those who are the real seekers of wisdom, they never claim that I know everything. Because one person, no man can know everything. It is an impossibility. Immanuel Kant, being a Western philosopher, made this clear to the humanity that first of all you should know the limit of your mind, limit of your knowledge. So many metaphysical problems will be solved automatically. Thank you. So today Dr. Rao is not with us. So myself will moderate. If there is any question in the chat box, no, there is no question in the chat box. If anybody has any question, please ask. I shall try to answer. If there is no question, no interact.
Sir, namaste.
Yes, there is one. Yes.
Sir, thank you very much for your beautiful presentation. It's very, very useful for us. Sir, one thing I have one doubt. I can't understand. One thing, that is, every time space and time are necessary, or sometimes only time is when we are talking or somebody is talking and I am being guided by the speech of another person, whether there is space and time both are working, or only time is working.
Thank you, madam. You are not you are not a student of philosophy, but you asked a philosophical question that yes, the space and time both are a priori conditions, but if we compare these two, space and time, time is time has a wider scope than space. So space is only required for outer experience. Okay. Time is required for both outer and inner. For example, you feel something. So that feeling does not occur in a space. Where does it occur? You can't say that I am in Bhubaneswar, therefore I felt in. No, in that sense, the space is not used. But no feeling is possible without time. That means no experience is possible without time. Therefore, time is the greater factor of experience. Okay, space is necessary. Space is necessary for outer experience. Time is necessary for both outer and inner experience. But you can't say, I have some experience without space and time. It is impossible. You give an example. You give an example of experience which occurs without space and time. This is a common sense philosophy. It is not a very great philosophy. It is common sense. Every experience takes place in a particular space and time. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you very much, sir.
One question is asked by whom I am seeing. Priyanka Mahapatra. He is asking one question, that what is dogmatism? Dogmatism means baseless claim. When you are claiming something without any base, when you believe something without any rational claim, justification, unjustified beliefs, unjustified convictions, unjustified judgments, these are dogmatic. Suppose you believe in God, but if you are asked, why do you believe in God? If you can't justify it, simply you believe because others believe, then you are dogmatic. Why you are a Hindu? If you don't have an answer, and if you say that you are a Hindu because your father is Hindu, then this is one way to answer this. But this is not a philosophical answer. So philosophy is beyond all the perspectives. So dogmatism means to be free from perspectives. Take a perspective as a perspective. Don't take a perspective as the totality. That is dogmatism. Dogmatism means justify something, believe something, to believe something without any justification. Okay, that is the point. Any question? For example, dogmatism, for example, a new bride will come to your house. Just she entered your house, the mother-in-law will die. ସେ ବୋହୂକୁ ଅଲକ୍ଷଣୀ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯିବ, ବୋହୂଟା ଗୋଟେ ଅଶୁଭ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯିବ। ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ କି ପ୍ରକାର ଥିଙ୍କିଂ? ଏଇଟା ହଉଛି ଡଗମାଟିକ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ। ଛୁଆକୁ ଜର ହେଲେ ତାକୁ ଚେଙ୍କ ଦିଆହବ, ଏଇଟା କି ପ୍ରକାର ଥିଙ୍କିଂ? ବଳି ପକେଇଲେ ମା ସନ୍ତୁଷ୍ଟ ହେବେ, ଏ କି ପ୍ରକାର ଥିଙ୍କିଂ? ଏସବୁ ଡଗମାଟିକ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ, ଯୋଉଟା ଗୋଟେ ଆମେ ପ୍ରଥା ଅନୁସାରେ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ କରୁ, ତାର ଜଷ୍ଟିଫିକେସନ କିଛି ନାହିଁ। ବୁଝିପାରିଲେ ନାହିଁ? ତେଣୁ ରାସନାଲ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ, ଡଗମାଟିକ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ ର ଅପୋଜିଟ ଟା ହଉଛି ରାସନାଲ ଥିଙ୍କିଂ। ସୋ ବି ରାସନାଲ, have your justification, justify your belief. So philosophy helps to be free from dogmatic attitudes. Therefore Immanuel Kant said David Hume awakened me from the dogmatic slumber. Thank you very much, sir, for guiding us on aesthetics with its analysis of the life. This is a compliment. How is the question? Rukmani Das in the phenomenal world. Then how can we know the nominal world? If human knowledge is limited to phenomenal world, then how can we know the nominal world? As Kant has claimed that noumena is unknowable. So how he came to know about that? Yes. Madam is asking the very beautiful question that if Immanuel Kant is claiming about the phenomenal world, that whatever we perceive, that belongs to the phenomenal world, then how he knows that there is a noumena, there is a metaphysical world, there is a nominal world? This is a very beautiful question. First of all, we have to understand that if there is a boundary, then logically it implies there must be something outside of the boundary. This was said by Hegel after Kant. Kant made a boundary of the phenomenal world. Hegel is claiming that if there is a boundary, then there must be something. If there is no boundary, then that is something different. If we are drawing a boundary, then it logically implies that there must be something outside the boundary. So when Immanuel Kant is claiming that my knowledge is impossible, Immanuel Kant is not claiming the noumena is impossible. Noumena is there, but my knowledge fails to reach there because my knowledge is conditioned to space and time, which are phenomenal, which are through this limitation of space and time, I shall perceive only those things which come in space and time. From this, it implies that anything that is beyond space and time is unknown and unknowable. Very simple. If your knowledge is confined to space and time, for example, for a service recruitment, there is a notification that those who have secured 55% in post-graduation, they can apply for lectureship. Minimum requirement is 55%. From this, it implies that suppose 1,000 candidates applied. From this, it is implied that there are some candidates who have less than 55% and they fail to apply. So from the limitation, we can logically infer what is beyond the limitation. So when we are drawing a boundary, we can say what is beyond the boundary. So Immanuel Kant is claiming that noumena is not impossible. Noumena is there, but our knowledge about the noumena is impossible. Immanuel Kant was unmarried. He was living with his servant whole life, with one servant. So his servant was very much acquainted with Immanuel Kant's philosophy. So one day he asked Immanuel Kant that you don't believe in God, you don't believe in soul, you don't believe in the real world, then how it is useful for me? I served you whole life and I believe in God. So there is no philosophy for me. I am an illiterate person, I am a layman. So you don't have any philosophy for me because I believe in God, I believe in soul. Immanuel Kant said, no, in my philosophy, there is also a scope for you. There is scope for God. There is scope for soul. There is scope for the real world. But through this ordinary region, pure region, you can't assess that. Therefore, Immanuel Kant wrote another book. After that, Immanuel Kant wrote another book that is called Critique of Practical Reason. So through practical reason, we can discuss about God, we can discuss about noumena, we can discuss about soul, real world, etc. But so far as the scientific conditions of epistemology is concerned, we don't have any access for noumena. So knowledge should be understood from the scientific perspective and from the metaphysical perspective. Therefore, he is using two terms. One is critique of pure reason and the other is critique of practical reason. Here also, I told you that there are three mental activities. One is transcendental aesthetic, the other is transcendental analytic, and the third one is transcendental dialectic. In transcendental aesthetic, he is speaking about sensation, speaking about sense experience. In transcendental analytic, he is speaking about understanding. But in transcendental dialectic, he will speak about what is beyond sensation and experience and understanding. Okay, so religious language is not meaningless. Religious language has meaning, but we have to know the perspective. We have to understand religious language in the sense of in that sense. We should not confuse religious language with scientific language. Okay, so from the knowledge of a phenomena, we can logically infer that there is noumena, but our scientific way of knowing can't reach there. Thank you. Yes, there is no question in chat box. We shall end here. So now I request Mrs. Tripathi to propose vote of thanks.
Namaskar to all. I wish a very happy Holi to all of you. Namaskar to all. I wish a very happy Holi to all of you present in this session. Today we discussed an important topic, Transcendental Aesthetics of Immanuel Kant. Space and time are necessary condition of knowledge, and therefore knowledge beyond the limit of space and time is impossible. Pramod sir explained this issue of epistemology very nicely. We are grateful to Pramod sir for his wisdom and contribution. We are grateful to all the participants for being with us in this session, and I request you all to attend webinar program tomorrow in Philosophy Family. Thank you all. Pranam. Meeting is closed. Thank you.